Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Hiya Toys release. This time we've got ourselves the Kong Skull Island Skull Devil, and if you are not familiar with what the Skull Devil is, it's a Skullcrawler, but they use the Skull Devil name because this is basically the alpha version of the Skullcrawlers on Skull Island. It's the one that you see fighting Kong at the end of Kong Skull Island. At least that's, what I'm led to believe. I'm pretty sure that's the story behind the Skull Devil version. I was actually intrigued when I first heard that they were calling it the Skull Devil. I was wondering why it wasn't called the Skullcrawler and looked into it, and that's the information that I found. So, makes sense, I guess. But you can see the box art looks really quite nice, actually. Definitely a very nicely done box. You've got some images of the figure here on the front. Again, of course, the Kong Skull Island logo up here on the top. Again, Kong Skull Island, and you can see it is an exquisite basic figure. Over here on the side, you can again see another shot of the figure, and then on the back you can see some information here on the company and everything, as well as again some more images of the figure, and then again another one over here. So let's go ahead and pop this box open and check it out. So here is our Skull Devil straight out of the packaging. Try to find a nice way to kind of position it here, and it does actually look really nice. First off, the paint apps look really good on this. The fine detail also looks really good on it. But there is one thing that I have seen about this figure that I've, noticed some other people in their images posting about it and stuff, and that's the fact that the Skullcrawler is missing the teeth on the inside of the mouth on the upper jaw. Now, it does have some teeth in there. You can see some small ones are in there, and at first I was like really let down because I'm thinking, why would you do that? They were basically ruining the entire mouth area of the figure. So I started to look up some images, and when I found this image, it almost looked like they did capture it correctly. It looked like maybe it didn't have the larger teeth up there on the inside of the mouth like I thought it did. So then I started to think maybe Hiya Toys was onto something. However, I went and actually watched the scene in the film, and if you look at this screenshot from the final battle, you can very clearly see that this Skull Devil has some pretty large teeth on the inside of the mouth, on the upper jaw, that Hiya Toys absolutely did not capture with their figure. So a little bit unfortunate as far as that goes, but outside of that, I think the figure does look really nice. So as always, let's jump to a closer look and check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt does actually look really good, especially when it comes to the skin texture. You can see they definitely went above and beyond to give you an extremely highly detailed sculpt, and the detail itself is extremely crisp on the figure. They definitely did a very good job overall when it comes to both the figure, the detailing, and the quality of the figure itself. But you can also see, again, we've got some really nice paint work. We've basically got like a dark tone that seems to have been dry brushed over with this light tone to give the white sort of appearance to the head sculpt of the Skullcrawler, of the Skull Devil, and I think they've done that really nicely. It doesn't look sloppy or anything for the most part. The paint looks pretty nice, pretty smooth, fairly naturalistic. You can also see the eyes are painted with a yellow. They have a slit black pupil, kind of going side to side rather than vertical like you often see. Of course, the jaw is articulated, and you can see both the upper and lower jaw move together to articulate the mouth. And you can also see one thing that's really cool, similar to like the Hammond Collection T-Rex, the skin right there is kind of stretchy, so you can see how it actually moves and stretches with the mouth when the jaw is opening. Definitely a big fan of that. But as you look at the inside of the mouth, you can see the tongue is sculpted really nicely in here. You've also got some variation of color to the inside of the mouth. You can see grays and reds and stuff, and like pinkish tones, and again, nice texturing to the tongue on the inside of the mouth and the lower jaw as well. Looks really good. The teeth on the lower jaw also look really quite nice. You can see they are painted with a kind of like an off-white or like a slight variation of a gray. If my camera would focus on them correctly, you can see that. They're definitely nicely painted as well. They don't really appear sloppy or anything. The detailing as you move through the course of the inside of the mouth also looks really quite nice all over. The tongue is also a soft kind of rubbery material, which you can see, which is nice actually. But on the inside of the mouth, on the upper side, again, you can see the paintwork does look nice, and the teeth are kind of painted out up there, but we are missing, again, some of those larger teeth like you do actually see on the Skullcrawler in the film. As you lead back into the neck, you start to see again the darker tones of the body pick up, but there are some variations of grays that you'll see sporadically placed through the course of the figure. You can really see them kind of running along the spinal column of the Skullcrawler. And again, same thing for the underside. You see more of those grayish tones, almost like some slight hints of like a maybe greenish brown. It's a very interesting tone of color, but there is definitely, again, variation of color throughout. You can also see that we've got some more articulated joints as you move down. You've got one spot for the neck here and one spot right here, which allows, again, some pretty smooth articulation in those areas. That's about as far down as it goes, and that's probably about as far up as it goes, it seems. I'm trying to be fairly careful with the neck. You can also get a nice left and right turn, but I'm trying to be fairly careful with the neck. I did see someone recently posting that the head popped off of theirs instantly when they pulled it out, and I don't want to do that with mine if I can avoid it. But as you move back, again, you can see the skin texture looks really nice as you move throughout. You can see skin wrinkles and folds and stuff, and again, the spinal column following along the back of the Skull Devil. And you can see right here, again, the spinal column is, looking like it's at its largest point, but it's also, again, painted nicely with those variations of blacks and grays. Kind of see what I think would be the shoulder blade potentially right there, maybe leading along as you lead down into the only limbs that our Skull Devil has here. You can see the muscle definition is nicely displayed. The skin texture, again, is absolutely phenomenal. You have like a line of ridges moving along the back of the leg, and then as you move down into the foot sculpt, you can see some nice dry brushing techniques have been applied to the foot sculpt to highlight the detail. The nails also look really good. They have a genuine sharp look to them on top of everything. A little bit of a satin shine to the nails as well, which is nice. We also have articulation in the legs, and you can see they move out away from the body and, of course, forward and back. So you've got lots of mobility in the joint of the leg. You've also got elbow articulation. You have like a spike leading off of the back of the elbow. Again, it's been kind of dry brushed over with a lighter tone where you could see the darker like grayish tones underneath. Definitely nice, but again, that articulation works very smoothly. And then you've got a nice little ball joint here in the wrist, and you can see that first of all the foot can kind of go forward and back very nicely. It can also swivel, which you can see there. So that looks really cool. Definitely adds, again, some very nice mobility for that area. Absolutely can create pretty much any and every sort of pose and scene you could want to create. It can even kind of swivel side to side, which is really, really nice. Again, definitely impressive articulation in that area. And then as we lead back up here, you can again see another articulated joint here in the midsection, which again is super, super smooth. Some of my Hiya Toys figures have been a little bit stiff. You got some okay mobility right there. Like, it can actually go down pretty far. Can't go up too far. But some of my Hiya Toys stuff has been a little stiff when I first get it. This actually, straight out of the box, is not at all. Again, you can see the skin texture looks really good. The paint job itself is really well done. Again, the variations of color are so nicely applied, so subtle with these slight differences in tones of color, which I think was a really nice touch. Again, it's not anywhere like where you look through where it's super obvious that the color changes. So I think that's a really, really nice touch on the part of Hiya Toys. We do have another area of articulation right here. Again, another basically like ball joint, can swivel and everything. I didn't know if that could swivel. Almost looks like it probably could if it wasn't, for the shape of the body. And then you've got one more joint of articulation basically right here, which can also swivel, go up, down, left, and right. And then as you lead out the rest of the tail is a wire tail, so you then have the ability to kind of move the tail in pretty much any position that you would like. As you lead out through the length of the tail, though, you can see that the sculpt and detail looks really nice. You can definitely see those like slight greenish tones here for the underside of the tail. And then as you lead out toward the tip of the tail, you have that very unique, very intriguing appearance for the end of the tail for our Skull Devil. Another thing I just noticed, actually, if you open the mouth, you can see an awkward sort of like a circle going on with the material for the skin stretching right here on the inside of the mouth. So that's definitely a little bit ugly. You don't see that on the other side. So definitely a little bit of a ugly side for the figure. But overall, I feel like they definitely did a really good job on this. Of course, there are a few things that could have been better, but as a whole, a super articulated version of a Skullcrawler, I really don't think you can go wrong with. Now, as far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tip of the tail, which is actually going to be a little difficult to get because it keeps trying to move away from me. I guess we're just going to have to measure it from a distance. You're looking at about 14.5 inches or around 37 centimeters. You really can't see it from your vantage point, but I was able to get that measurement. The highest point is definitely going to be the mid-back area. And of course, considering you can alter the pose of this, you could probably switch it up to make the height, a bit more impressive. But height-wise, you're looking at a little under 4.25 inches or a little bit under 11 centimeters, I would say. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Skull Devil from Hiya Toys. And you can see again, it definitely has a pretty decent size to it. I was actually quite impressed in general with the size of the box. When I first pulled it out, I wasn't expecting it to be quite so large. So you can absolutely see again, even though it's not gigantic, it does have a pretty good size. Now for another size comparison, I brought in one of the new Playmates Godzilla X Kong figures, and what is a bummer for me is I actually don't have any of the Hiya Toys Kong figures in my collection. I have considered getting some, but I haven't quite yet, and that means I can't really display a Hiya Toys Kong next to the Skullcrawler because I don't have one. But again, for a comparison with a Playmates Kong, if you happen to have one of these, hopefully this will help to give you an idea of the size. So for another comparison with another Hiya Toys release, here is the Hiya Toys Godzilla King of the Monsters Godzilla, which happens to be my favorite Godzilla from Hiya so far. And you can see roughly what the size is here. Obviously, when it comes to a length, the Skullcrawler is really quite impressive, definitely quite massive, but Godzilla obviously has a good bit more body mass. Regardless, again, for what the figure is, it definitely has a pretty decent size. And then when it comes to another size comparison, obviously there's not much of one here because we have the King Ghidorah from Hiya Toys next to the Skullcrawler, and clearly King Ghidorah is massive in comparison. So this brand new Hiya Toys Kong Skull Island Super Articulated Skull Devil is really quite cool, actually. Definitely a figure that I am a fan of. Of course, I would have definitely preferred to have seen the teeth on the upper jaw look a little more impressive like you actually do see in the film. I think the fact that the figure is lacking in that area almost makes it look like an elderly version of the Skull Devil, and, like he's lost his teeth at some point, but it does still look really cool, especially with the mouth closed, but as long as, you don't pay too much attention to the upper jaw when the mouth is open, I still think it looks really quite nice. The fine detail is great through the course of the entire figure. The skin texture looks incredible and honestly looks exactly as I recall from the film. The paint job as well is really nicely done. Again, for the most part, Hiya usually knocks their paint jobs out of the park, and I think they've done the same for this one, and especially in the face there with those white tones that you have in the face for the Skullcrawler. I feel like they've almost perfectly replicated what you do see on the Skull Devil in the film. Again, the paintwork is very nice and precise, no real sloppiness or anything that I can see anywhere. The articulation as well is definitely nicely done. I think they've pretty much articulated any and every joint you could possibly want when it comes to a Skull Devil, so you do have full posability with this one, and it all works really smoothly, which is really nice because, again, some Hiya Toys stuff I've acquired has been a little bit stiff in the articulation area, but this one is super, super smooth. So as a whole, even though there are a few iffy areas on the figure, the Skull Devil is absolutely awesome if you ask me. And again, another really nice release from Hiya Toys. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine from Big Bad Toy Store, which it is in stock currently. So make sure you check that link, go grab this right now, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.